The hardest thing in life is knowing which bridge to cross and which to burn. Most people assume that when someone moves on, they never look back. They think that once a person has made up their mind, that's it. Case closed, game over, done. But my friends, that's the biggest lie we've been sold. The truth is, they feel the loss far more than they'll ever admit, because real absence doesn't just disappear. It lingers, it echoes, and it creates a void that no one else can easily fill. Before we dive deep into why they struggle to let go, even when they act indifferent, do me a favor. If you've ever wondered, do they even miss me? Or why do they pretend they don't care? Hit that like button, subscribe, and stay with me until the end, because today we're exposing the truth. Imagine this. You're walking through a museum, admiring a priceless painting. It's been there for years, so you don't think much about it. It's always been a part of the scenery, right? But then, one day, you walk in and it's gone. The wall is empty, and suddenly you don't just notice its absence. You feel it. You start wondering, why was it taken? Who took it? And more importantly, will I ever see it again? That's what happens when you walk away from someone with quiet strength. They don't think they'll miss you until they do. The problem is, people don't like to admit when they've lost something valuable. Why? Because it means admitting they were wrong. It means accepting that they let go of something they should have held on to. And let's be real, most people's egos are too big for that kind of truth. Instead, they do mental gymnastics to convince themselves, nah, I don't care. I never really needed them anyway. Meanwhile, deep inside, the silence is getting louder. Here's where it gets even crazier. The more they try to suppress it, the more their subconscious keeps bringing you back. Ever heard a song play randomly and instantly get hit with a wave of memories? That's because the brain doesn't forget emotions. It holds on to feelings long after faces fade. You might have noticed something weird. Maybe they unfollowed you but still watch your stories. Maybe they told everyone they moved on, but they still check up on you through mutual friends. It's not that they don't feel your absence. It's that they don't want to admit it's affecting them. And here's where you win. Not by chasing them, not by begging, and definitely not by trying to prove your worth. You win by knowing your worth. Because when you stop seeking validation from the people who underestimated you, that's when you truly become unforgettable. Stoicism teaches us that real power isn't about control over others. It's about control over yourself. It's about mastering your emotions so that you decide how your story ends, not them. When you walk away with dignity, you don't just leave. You leave a mark. So let's set the record straight. You were never just another person in their life. You were an experience, a presence, a force. And when someone loses something rare, trust me, they feel it, even if their pride won't let them say it out loud. If you're ready to step into that quiet power, type in the comments, I am irreplaceable. Let's make it real. Press that like button, hit subscribe, and stay with me, because what I'm about to share next is going to change the way you see yourself forever. Number 1, you created an emotional blueprint they can't replace. People will forget what you said. People will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. You think they moved on. You think they replaced you. But here's what no one tells you. People don't remember the exact words you spoke or the things you did. What stays with them, what lingers in the quiet corners of their minds, is how you made them feel. And my friends, that is something they can't just erase. Think about it. Have you ever caught a random scent in the air, and just like that, you're back in a moment you thought you had forgotten? A song comes on, and suddenly the memories rush in like a flood. Places, laughter, late-night conversations, the feeling of being completely understood. That's because the human mind isn't a perfect filing cabinet of events. It's a web of emotions stitched together by moments that mattered. Now here's where it gets interesting. When they left, they thought they were walking away from a person. What they didn't realize was they were walking away from a feeling, and feelings don't just fade because you want them to. They might be with someone else now, they might be laughing, posting, pretending. But deep down, when the noise dies down and they're left alone with their thoughts, something doesn't feel quite right. Something's missing, and they can't put their finger on it, because it's not about you. It's about the way you made them feel when they were with you. At first they convince themselves it's just part of moving on. I'll get over it. But then, as time passes, something weird happens. They start comparing, not intentionally, at least not at first, but things begin to stand out. Why doesn't this person make me laugh like they did? Why don't I feel that same excitement? Why do I feel less? That's when it hits them. They didn't just lose you, they lost the way they felt when they were with you. But let's be real, my friends. Right now, some of you are sitting there feeling that pit in your stomach, thinking, but if they miss me so much, why don't they come back? Because admitting they lost something valuable means admitting they made a mistake, and people hate doing that. The human ego is fragile. It will fight tooth and nail to protect itself from the truth, even when the truth is obvious. So instead of admitting they feel the loss, they cover it up. They try to replace the feeling, to recreate it with someone else. But that's like chasing a shadow. No matter how hard they try, it's never quite real. Let's break the biggest lie right here. They can replace you physically, but they will never replace the impact you had on them emotionally. And if you think that's not true, let me ask you something. Have you ever met someone, even for a short time, and for some reason you still remember them years later? Not because of what they said, not because of what they did, but because of how they made you feel in a way no one else ever has. That's you in their story. Now the benchmark, the one they compare everyone else to. And the worst part for them, they don't even realize it's happening until it's too late. See, folks, real impact isn't about grand gestures. It's not about being the most attractive, the richest, or the smartest. It's about being unforgettable, and that happens when you touch something deeper than surface-level attraction. That's why people say they want the spark. But what is the spark really? It's not looks, it's not status, it's not even common interests. It's that unexplainable pull, that feeling of this is different, this is rare. And when something is rare, it can't be easily replaced. But let me tell you what not to do. Don't sit around waiting for them to realize it. Don't let your worth depend on whether they wake up one day and finally see what they lost. That's their journey, not yours. Your job is to become someone who doesn't need to be remembered, because you're too busy creating a future so powerful that looking back isn't even an option. And when you do that, something magical happens. The tables turn. Because the more you grow, the more you evolve, the more they realize, damn, they weren't just another person. They were an experience. And experiences, they don't fade. So my friends, I want you to write this in the comments right now. I am unforgettable. Show yourself, show the world, and most importantly, believe. Because the moment you stop chasing validation from those who took you for granted, you step into your true power. Trust me, you're going to want to stay with me, because what I'm about to reveal next is the reason why the harder something is to get, the more they want it. And that, my friends, changes everything. Number 2, the ego rejects what the heart feels. The ego is just a false self born out of fear and defensiveness. They feel it. Oh, they feel it more than they'll ever admit. But here's the thing, admitting they feel the loss is a direct attack on their ego, and most people would rather lie to themselves than face the uncomfortable truth that they let go of something rare. See, the human heart is honest. It knows when something was real, it knows when something is missing. But the ego is a master manipulator. It doesn't care about truth. It cares about protection. It will rewrite the entire story just to avoid admitting a mistake. That's why they tell themselves things like, "It was never that deep. I never really cared that much. You're better off without them anyway." It's all just mental gymnastics to keep their pride intact. Because, let's be real, how often do people openly admit, "I was wrong. I lost something valuable. I regret it." Almost never. That kind of self-awareness requires humility, and let's just say humility isn't exactly the ego's favorite thing. So instead, they rationalize the loss. They find reasons to make it seem like it was their choice, even when deep down they feel the void. They tell themselves, "You were too much, too different, too difficult," anything that makes it easier to justify why they're no longer in your life. But their subconscious, that's a different story. Because while their ego is out here pretending not to care, their subconscious is busy reminding them of every little thing they lost. That's why they start checking your stories even when they've unfollowed you. That's why they bring you up in random conversations, even when they said they've moved on. That's why, out of nowhere, you get that unexpected text, that sudden, "Hey, how have you been?" After weeks, months, or even years of silence. It's not an accident. It's not just being friendly. It's their subconscious doing what their ego refuses to do, pulling them back toward what they lost. But the real irony, the harder they try to act indifferent, the more obvious it becomes that they're not. Have you ever seen someone go out of their way to prove they don't care? Unfollowing you, but still watching your stories. Telling people they're over it, but still bringing you up. Pretending they've moved on, but reacting strangely when they hear your name. That's not indifference, that's ego-driven damage control. Because when someone genuinely doesn't care, they don't need to prove it. They don't need to avoid your name like it's cursed. They don't need to peek at your life from a distance. They just move on. But when someone forces themselves to move on, when they have to convince themselves that losing you was no big deal, that's when you know you left a mark. And here's where most people mess up. They see this happening and think, maybe if I reach out, they'll finally admit it. But that's not how this game works. The moment you chase, you validate their ego's version of the story, the one where they were in control, where they made the right decision, where they don't feel the loss. But when you don't engage, when you move forward without seeking closure, that's when the discomfort begins to creep in. Because now they don't just have to fight their own emotions. They have to fight the fact that you're not waiting around for them to figure it out. That's the worst thing for an ego-driven person. Realizing that the one they thought they could forget is the one they can't shake off. So let me make this crystal clear. If they're watching from a distance, if they're still lurking, still bringing you up, still showing signs that they feel something but won't say it, it's not because they don't care. It's because their ego won't let them admit that they do. And that's their battle, not yours. Your power isn't in proving them wrong. Your power is in not needing them to admit it at all. Because when you know your worth, when you stand so firm in who you are that their validation becomes irrelevant, that's when you become truly unforgettable. So let's make it official. Drop this in the comments. I am beyond their ego. Write it, believe it, own it. Because once you do, you stop being someone they can manipulate. You become someone they can't replace. And trust me, you're going to want to stick around for what's next, because the harder something is to get, the more they want it. And my friends, that's where things get really interesting. Number 3, the rarity effect. You weren't easily replaced. What is rare is valuable. What is valuable is protected. What is protected is desired. Here's a truth most people don't want to accept. People don't value what is easy to get. They value what is rare, what is earned, what isn't handed to them without effort. Sure. See, when something is always available, it fades into the background. It becomes ordinary, expected, taken for granted. But the moment it's gone, that's when its true value is realized. Think about it. Have you ever walked past 100 pebbles on the ground and never given them a second thought? Of course, they're everywhere. But imagine holding a diamond in your hand. It's different, isn't it? You protect it, you admire it. You understand that something that rare isn't just something you find every day. And my friends, you are the diamond. Your time is not given to just anyone. Your energy is reserved for those who deserve it. Your presence is a rare thing that not everyone has access to, and that makes you valuable. But here's where people get it twisted. When they had access to you, they assumed it would always be there. They thought your patience, your kindness, your loyalty, those were just things that came with you. They never stopped to consider that those were choices you made, choices they were lucky to receive. So when they walked away, they expected to find another you. They thought, I'll just meet someone else. It's no big deal. But then reality hit, and suddenly every new connection felt shallow. Every interaction lacked something they couldn't quite put their finger on. They laughed, but it wasn't the same. They spent time with others, but it didn't hit as deep. And eventually that little voice in their head whispered, if they were so easy to replace, why do I still think about them? Because, my friends, you don't just replace rarity. You don't just stumble upon depth, emotional intelligence, and a presence that carries weight. You don't find someone who gets you in ways no one else did, just because you're ready to move on. It doesn't work like that. And let's be honest, deep down they start to realize it. Maybe not immediately, maybe not in a way they'll ever admit out loud, but they feel it. They feel it when they meet someone new and find themselves comparing. They feel it when they hear a joke and instinctively think of how you would have laughed at it. They feel it when they reach for their phone, about to text you, but stop themselves because their ego won't let them. And that's when the emotional tension sets in, that nagging thought that says, did I mess up? Did I let go of something I should have held on to? But let's not get it twisted. This isn't about you waiting for them to realize your worth. You are worth. This is about understanding human nature. People don't value what they have unlimited access to. They only start appreciating something when they see how rare it truly was. And right now, they're realizing it. Maybe they don't say it. Maybe they pretend like everything's fine. Maybe they even try to convince themselves that they made the right choice. But thoughts don't lie. And if they still think about you, if they still catch themselves wondering why no one else feels quite the same, that's your proof. Because here's the raw truth, my friends. You were never just another option. You were the standard, the benchmark, the one they will measure everyone else against. And if they were foolish enough to take that for granted, that's not your burden to carry. That's theirs. So here's what I want you to do. Drop this in the comments right now. I am irreplaceable. Say it, own it, make it a declaration. Because when you realize that you were never just another pebble in the sand, but the diamond they never should have let go of, you stop looking back. And trust me, my friends, that's when the real power shift begins. And you're going to want to stay with me for what's next, because what happens when you go silent? What happens when you stop proving your worth? That's when they start to feel the loss. And the silence, oh my friends, the silence is deafening. Number 4. Silence creates the loudest echo. Silence isn't empty, it's full of answers. Most people, when they feel someone slipping away, panic. They beg, they plead, they try to explain, to prove, to negotiate their worth. They spill their emotions all over the floor, hoping that if they just say the right thing, they'll change the other person's mind. But my friends, that never works. Because words can be dismissed, they can be ignored, debated, twisted. But silence is a mirror. When you leave without a word, without a fight, without an explanation, you force them to sit alone with themselves and face the truth. Think about it. Have you ever watched a movie that ended on a cliffhanger? Maybe the screen faded to black before the final answer was given. Maybe the character walked away without saying a word. And what happens? You can't stop thinking about it. You go over every detail, every moment, searching for answers, trying to fill in the gaps. That, my friends, is called the Zeigarnik effect, a psychological principle that says unfinished stories stay in the mind longer. The human brain hates unresolved endings. It keeps replaying them, analyzing them, trying to make sense of what was left unsaid. And that's exactly why silence creates the loudest echo. Because when someone walks away dramatically, screaming, crying, writing long paragraphs demanding closure, it actually makes it easier for the other person to let go. Why? Because the story feels finished. There's nothing left to wonder about. But when someone simply disappears, no explanation, no final speech, no dramatic exit, just gone, that creates an unanswered question. And unanswered questions haunt people. They wonder, did I make a mistake? Were they ever really hurt? Or did they just stop caring? Why aren't they trying to fix this? Did I mean nothing to them? And that's when the doubt starts creeping in. Because, my friends, when you don't react the way they expected, it messes with their entire perception of the situation. They expected you to beg, to fight, to prove your worth. And when you don't, it forces them to wonder if maybe, just maybe, they were the ones who lost something valuable. Let's flip the script for a second. Imagine you cut someone off, expecting them to crumble, expecting them to chase you. But instead, they just vanish. They don't argue, they don't check up on you, they don't even seem fazed. What happens? You start to question your own decision. Because if someone truly didn't care, why wouldn't they at least say something? That's why ghosting, as frustrating as it is, makes people obsess. It's not about respect, it's about mystery, the unknown. The lack of closure is what keeps someone thinking about you far longer than they ever expected. See, most people don't move on when a relationship ends. They move on when they fully understand why it ended. But when you go silent, when you remove yourself with no warning, no explanation, no emotional breakdown, you take that sense of closure away from them. And now they have to live with the silence you left behind. And silence makes people reflect. They start replaying the good times instead of the bad. They start wondering if they made the right call. And the more time passes, the more they start to feel that uncomfortable weight in their chest, the one that whispers, "You messed up." But here's the thing. This isn't about playing games. This isn't about punishing someone. This is about self-respect. You don't go silent to manipulate. You go silent because you know that words won't change what actions have already decided. You go silent because your presence is a privilege, not a right. And when someone stops valuing that privilege, you take it away. And when you do that, silence will speak louder than any speech you could have given. So here's what I want you to do. Drop this in the comments. My silence is power. Let the world see it. Let them see it. Let yourself believe it. Because when you stop explaining your worth and start showing it, that's when they realize they lost something they can't replace. Trust me, you're going to want to stay with me for what's next, because what happens when they finally realize what they lost, when they start feeling the absence, that's when they come running back. But my friends, by then, it might just be too late. Number 5. They took your presence for granted until it was gone. You never know what you have until it's gone, and by then it's too late. They had you. They had your time, your energy, your presence. And for a while, They thought it would always be there. You were reliable. You were consistent. You were the one they could count on, even when they didn't deserve it. And that, my friends, is exactly why they took you for granted. Because when something is always available, when someone always forgives, always stays, always shows up, it becomes expected. Familiarity doesn't just breed comfort, it breeds complacency. They didn't appreciate you not because you weren't valuable, but because your presence became normal to them. But the moment you remove yourself, the moment you truly detach, that's when the entire dynamic shifts. That's when they feel something they never thought they would: loss. Think about it like this. Imagine you've had Wi-Fi in your home for years. It's always there, it's fast, reliable, and you never think twice about it. Then one day, boom, it's gone. No warning, no explanation, no backup plan. What happens? First, you're annoyed. You assume it's a temporary glitch. You refresh, reset, try everything to get it back. Then frustration kicks in. Why isn't this working? I need this. Then finally, reality sets in. It's gone. And that's when you really start appreciating what you had, not when it was working, not when it was available every single day, but when you lost it. That's what happens when you leave someone's life with quiet strength. No. At first they assume it's temporary. They think, oh, they'll reach out. They always do. But then the days pass, then the weeks, and something starts to shift inside them. I go to text you, but you're not there. They expect you to check in, but you don't. They assume you're still lingering, still watching, still waiting for them to figure things out. But you're not. And that's when the void hits them, because now they're feeling something they never expected: your absence. And the worst part, they don't know how to fill it. See, when someone assumes you'll always be there, they never prepare for a life without you. They never imagine a day where you're not one text away, where they don't have access to you. So when that day comes, when they finally realize they miscalculated your worth, they panic. They start replaying the past, searching for the exact moment they lost their grip on you. They start looking at their phone, hoping for a message that isn't coming. They check your social media, looking for any sign that you still care. They ask mutual friends about you, trying to figure out if you've moved on. And when they realize that you're really gone, that's when the regret sets in. Because here's the thing, people always think they have time. They assume they can take you for granted today and fix things tomorrow. They assume they can disrespect you, ignore you, play games with you, and that you'll still be there when they finally decide to show up. But what happens when they show up and you're already gone? That's when they realize the truth. You were never a given. You were a privilege. And now they have to live with the fact that they lost someone who wasn't afraid to walk away. And my friends, that's when the power shifts. Because when you were available, when you were patient, when you kept giving chances, they were in control. But now, you're the one who got away. Who got away. So if you're ever sitting there wondering if they miss you, if they regret losing you, trust me, they do. But their biggest regret isn't just losing you. It's losing the version of you that still cared. Because once you detach, once you stop seeing them as someone worth waiting for, you become someone they can never reach the same way again. So here's what I want you to do. Drop this in the comments. I was a privilege, not an option. Let it be known. Let it be real. Because when you finally realize your worth, you don't beg to be appreciated. You walk away, and when you do, that's when they finally see what they lost. And trust me, my friends, what comes next? That's when the real regret starts to sink in. Stay with me, it's about to get very interesting. Number 6, people only realize value in retrospect. We do not see things as they are, we see them as we are. People only realize value in retrospect. At first, they walk away feeling confident in their decision, maybe even relieved. They tell themselves it was the right call, that they'll find someone better, that they don't need you. Their mind tricks them into believing that walking away was a win. But time has a funny way of humbling people. The brain doesn't process loss immediately. It takes time. At first, the ego blocks it out, drowning out any second thoughts with distractions, new faces, and the rush of moving on. But as the weeks turn into months, as the months turn into years, something shifts. The dust settles, the distractions fade, and suddenly the reality of what they lost sinks in. See, at first, they focus on the negatives. They remember the arguments, the disagreements, the moments of frustration. That's how they justify leaving. That's how they convince themselves they made the right choice. But here's where it gets interesting. Over time, the bad memories start to fade while the good ones become sharper. The mind does this naturally. It holds on to warmth, to nostalgia, to what once felt good. And so, without even realizing it, they start reminiscing the late-night talks, the laughter, the feeling of being understood in a way no one else has ever quite managed. And suddenly the thought creeps in, did I make a mistake? And that's when the real regret begins. It's why you see exes reaching out after years of silence. It's why people come back with, I've been thinking about you texts when you least expect it. It's not that they've changed, it's not that they've had some great awakening. It's that time has rewritten the story in their mind, highlighting all the things they never fully appreciated when they had you. Because, my friends, real value doesn't fade, it grows. And that's where Stoicism teaches us something powerful. Your worth is not dependent on whether someone sees it today. It's measured by the impact you made, an impact that only gets stronger over time. Think about it like this. Imagine a painting. At first glance, it looks ordinary, maybe even unimpressive. But years later, as people mature and their perspective deepens, they start seeing details they never noticed before. The colors become richer, the meaning behind the strokes becomes clearer, and suddenly what was once overlooked becomes priceless. That's you. They didn't see it before, not because you weren't valuable, but because they weren't ready to understand your value. But time has a way of forcing people to confront the truth. Maybe they see you thriving and it stings. Maybe they meet new people and realize no one connects with them the way you did. Maybe they wake up one day and realize they let go of something they'll never find again. And here's the part that really gets them. They can't go back to how things were. Because the version of you that once loved them, that once cared, that once waited, that version no longer exists. And nothing haunts a person more than knowing they had something valuable, but were too blind to see it when it mattered most. So if you're sitting there wondering, do they ever regret losing me? The answer is yes, but their regret is not your problem. Their delayed realization is not your responsibility. Your power lies in knowing that the ones who didn't see your value on time will have to live with that reality for the rest of their lives. So I want you to drop this in the comments. My value only grows. Write it, claim it, let it be a reminder to yourself that you were never just another option. You were the lesson they had to learn the hard way. And trust me, my friends, we're just getting started. Because what happens when they finally realize the truth, when they come back hoping to fix what they broke? That's when the real test begins. Stay with me, it's about to get very interesting. Number 7, regret hits harder when you've moved on. Nothing haunts us like the things we didn't say, the chances we didn't take, and the people we let slip away. Regret doesn't hit when they walk away. It doesn't hit when they're out there, thinking they've moved on, distracted by new people, new experiences, new temporary highs. No, my friends, regret hits when they realize they no longer have access to you. See, when you were still watching their stories, still responding to their texts, still lingering in their world, even from a distance, they didn't feel the loss fully. They had the illusion that if they ever wanted to, They could come back, that you were still there, still waiting, still an option. But the moment they realize you've actually moved on, that you're thriving, unbothered, uninterested, that's when the pain really sets in. Because now they don't just miss you, they want you. And nothing messes with the human mind more than wanting something they can't have. It's basic psychology. People desire what's unavailable. The moment something is out of reach, its value skyrockets. And you, my friend, just became a limited edition. That's why exes suddenly pop up when you least expect it. That's why they reach out after years of silence. That's why they accidentally like your old photos, why they find an excuse to text you, why they ask mutual friends about you when they swore they were done. It's not random, it's not coincidence, it's regret. Because now they're looking at you not as the person they left behind, not as the one they thought they could replace, but as the one they lost. And that realization, it hurts. They see you glowing, growing, evolving into someone even better than the person they once knew. And the worst part, they no longer have access to that version of you because you're no longer checking for them. You're no longer waiting for closure. You're no longer stuck in the past, replaying old memories, wondering, what if? You've moved forward, and that's the ultimate wake-up call. See, people always assume they'll have time. They think they can walk away, and if they ever change their mind, they'll just slide back in like nothing happened. They assume they can leave and you'll still be there. But what happens when they turn around and realize you're gone? Not just physically, but emotionally. Not just on the surface, but deep in your soul. That's when they feel the weight of their choices. That's when the nights get a little quieter, the memories a little louder, and the regret a little heavier. And the best part? You don't even have to do anything. Because your power isn't in trying to make them miss you. It's not in proving your worth. It's not in waiting for them to realize their mistake. Your true power is in not needing them to. Because when you genuinely stop caring, when you fully step into your worth, when you no longer crave their validation, that's when you become unforgettable. And trust me, my friends, they feel it. So if you've ever wondered, do they regret losing me? Don't look for answers in their words. Look at their actions. Look at how they can't help but check up on you, how they can't ignore your success, how they suddenly reappear the moment you've let go. Because in the end, it was never you who needed them. It was always them who needed you. So here's what I want you to do. Drop this in the comments. I am the one that got away. Write it, own it, make it real, because when you finally realize that you were the prize all along, that's when the game truly changes. And trust me, you're going to want to stick around for what's next, because now we're talking about the void they can never fill. Stay with me, it's about to get very real. So folks, listen to me, they feel the pain. Yes, they just won't admit it. Because admitting it means admitting they lost someone irreplaceable. But here's where you win. You don't need their validation. You don't need their regret to prove your worth. Your value exists whether they acknowledge it or not. When you become the person who doesn't chase, doesn't beg, and doesn't seek closure, you become the person they can't forget. So my friends, make sure to press that like button, subscribe, and share this with someone who needs to hear it. Because trust me, there's someone out there questioning their worth right now, and this might be exactly what they need. And as always, remember, you are unforgettable. I appreciate you being here, and I'll see you in the next video. Stay strong, stay unshakable, stay legendary.